Welcome to today's episode of People and Strategy. I'm your host, Mo Fatalbab, President of International Facilitators Organization. People and Strategy is a podcast from the SHRM Executive Network, the premier network of executives in the field of human resources. Each week, we bring you in-depth conversations with the country's top HR executives and thought leaders. For today's conversation, I'm excited to be joined by Paul Theisen, founder and principal of TAG CXO, a network of on-demand fractional executives. Paul himself is also a fractional CIO. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Mo. It's good to be here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, thank you. Great to have you with us. To kick us off, tell us how you landed in a fractional CIO role and what that entails.
About 7.5 years ago, I landed in an unexpected role, which I refer to as a consulting role in a wonderful company in Orlando. And really looking back on that retrospectively, it was a fractional executive CIO role. I was the chief information officer or acting CIO for that firm for a period of time. We didn't call it that back then. We just called it consulting, but whoa, are those things different? So when I came out of that role, I was actually flying home on an airplane, and I said, every middle market company in America needs what we just did for this company. And there's a talent gap. In my view of it there's a technology leadership gap at the executive level. And I'm in a unique position to help with that. But I don't want to just do a consulting agency. I want to build a firm, and I want to invite lots of other people into this to go solve that gap for the middle market. So that's how I found myself in my first fractional CIO role. And I've had many since then. And currently, I'm not engaged as a CIO. I'm running the firm and serving lots of other CIOs with lots of other clients.
And so, Paul, why are fractional executive roles so important right now?
And I think that the reason they're so important right now is because they genuinely fill a gap, a leadership vacuum that unless a specific and trained and expert with experience is filling the role, as a domain expert, if they're not filling in that role, other people are doing it who are perhaps less qualified, right? And less prepared to run the role effectively. So what's happened with with fractional executives, fractional is think about it as in terms of access. You're able to access higher levels of talent for less cost on a part-time basis. And that creates a whole new pool of labor force, right, that can come in and do things at an executive level, an execution level for strategy and people leadership and contribution to the rest of the C-suite in terms of running the company and making decisions, even outside of their domain, but being a decision participant. I'll give you an example. I had a water filter salesman say to me one time, Paul, if you don't have a water filter, you are a water filter. And I've never forgotten that. Well, if you don't have a CIO, you are a CIO. How good of a CIO are you? And are you prepared to fulfill that whole role and to take on those accountabilities? And more we're seeing across companies, and we focus a lot on the middle market, that they are recognizing that they can take off that hat that they've been assigned and they can hand it to a career advocate, expert that knows how to run that, and they can pass the baton. So I think that's a fundamental reason why fractional executives are popular. Another one is this. Fractional executives, if it's done right, are filling an actual role at a company, not just as a consultant working on a project. They'll work on projects, but they'll own the role. And with owning the role comes a certain level of accountability, might I even say fiduciary accountability, okay, to represent that company and its interests as a co-executive. That's the difference between fractional and consulting.
So, Paul, in your perspective as a fractional CIO, how would you describe the symbiotic relationship between the CIO and the CHRO?
The symbiotic relationship of CIO and CHRO. I would say, there's really built-in symbiosis, or there should be, because both of them are consuming services from the other group, right? So they're customers or consumers of those services, and both of them are providers of services that are consumed by the other group. So they're both providers and customers of each other. And so in that, so a technology group, a CIO is looking for really good, capable people and needs help recruiting them, hiring them, developing them, and then turning them into a team and providing culture with them. Who better to turn to than the HR group, who's sourcing the right people with the right roles, with the right skill sets, and then helping to culturate them, into the organization to build teams. Well, on the same token, a CIO provides systems and automation to the HR group, and they have tons of systems that are needed. And automation is a wonderful lever for them to leverage the capabilities of their own people in the HR organization. So that's a very practical sort of foundation stone for how to build symbiosis between those two roles. They need each other, and they need each other to be successful in their own roles as co-executives. Now, beyond that, I think that symbiosis is powerful if it's established, because not only can that people and system and culture and engagement uh, help those two departments, but together, those two roles can have a vision for how to go help the rest of the company get the right people to adopt the right technologies and build the culture of the company. See, good technology leads to good engagement. Good engagement leads to good employee experience. Employee experience leads to good retention. We all want this, but there's a core between, we want to move beyond implementing things and tools, and we want to use things and tools to create leverage and advantage. So the difference here is implementation is money spent. Think about that. A solution adoption in an organization is money made. It's the outcome. It's the result of why we're doing this. And what two better people than the CIO and the CHRO to say we're going to move forward with good employee experience when it comes to our systems. And we're not only going to put the right people in the company, we're going to empower them with the right systems, and we're going to give them good experience to go do that. And, that's a strategic nod to retention and employee engagement. So that's where I think symbiosis starts and where it can go.
Important stuff. So, Paul, now we're going to go and do some trivia-based questions based on recent research. We'll start with 2 multiple choice questions, followed by a true and false question. Make your best guess. There will be 3 questions, and afterwards, we'll discuss the impact of these trends. Here we go. According to an ICIMS study, which of these factors is the top-ranked factor holding back the HR-IT partnership? Is it A, limited budgets and resources, B, strategic disconnect between both sides, or C, resistance to change from HR?
I'm going to say number 2, strategic disconnect between both organizations. I think they can become tactical.
You are correct.
All right.
Are correct. The answer is B. While all these factors play a role in HR-IT partnership, strategic disconnect was ranked as the top factor at 55%.
Wow.
A close second was limited budgets and resources at 48%, and resistance to change from HR was ranked at 42%.
Yeah, resistance. Yeah. Okay, good. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah.
According to the 2024 Gartner AI survey, what percentage of CIOs focus on mitigating the potential negative impacts of AI on either employee work or well-being? Is it A, 20%, B, 10%, or C, 5%?
I want to say 20%. I think it's high.
You are correct again.
Okay.
The survey
kind of
found
low.
Well, so you think it's even higher. The survey found that 1 in 5 CIOs said they focus on mitigating the potential negative impacts of AI on either employee work or well-being.
Interesting.
All right, now we're going to go to our true or false question. Based on a SHRM study of job postings for HR positions, technology skills command an estimated premium over $20,000. True or false?
False.
The answer is true. The study reported an estimated premium of $23,775.
Okay, that's really interesting, and I believe it. Where my mind was is everybody needs technology skills now today, and they're fully commoditized. But maybe they're not. You know, so there is a lot. Therein lies an assumption that either needs to be validated or eliminated. So we just eliminated one.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for playing the game. Now let's unpack the data. Based on your experience, where do you see the strategic disconnect occurring between the CIO and the CHRO?
I really believe that a lot of organizations, a lot of CIOs and a lot of CHROs come into their relationship as department managers. That's the hat that they're wearing. I run the IT group, and the other person says I run the HR group, right? And they have real and urgent needs in each of those groups. I need people. I need them now. I need you to recruit. I need to onboard. I need to do performance evaluations. I need an employee portal. I need all of these things. And on the other side, I need systems. I need to upgrade my applicant tracking system. I need a better upgraded, system. I needed a whole HRIS system if I had my way, and all of these things. And what happens is the relationship group are very tactically focused, right? And I think that sometimes the important things and the strategic things get sacrificed on the altar of urgent and tactical. And so I really think that, and here's what I think: all of those things I just talked about are necessary and mandatory. They're imperatives, right? We need people, we need systems, we need to work together to go get those. But if we're true leaders, or we're true executive leaders, we should have people for that. And I mean that in a very sincere way. We have people to go do that stuff, to work together, to team up together, to accomplish those things, to prioritize those things, to understand requirements and options, and to make recommendations. That's what our people will do for us. Our relationship needs to be focused on the strategic and the important and the game-changing things that an organization can focus on, where the only two people who can partner on those things, and accomplish the things that we can accomplish together. We're the only two people that can do that. We can only do the things that we can only do, right? And so we should be about our business. So I think that there is in any relationship, and especially a new relationship, there needs to be a rapport that's built, and people need to understand each other's motives and each other's strengths and perhaps weaknesses. So I think it's rational to hold assumptions, but to validate or eliminate those assumptions. I already said that, but I really mean that here, in the sense that both people are coming together and they have preconceived notions about the other organization. And you need to dispel some of the myths and work together to get on the same page and develop a mutual respect for one another, because people work well with who they want to work with and whom they respect. And so I think a good dose of humility is really important, and coming into every conversation and focusing the conversation on those things that we can do strategically, not only within our departments, but more importantly, and we touched on this earlier, how do we affect positive change at the firm, and have exponential outcomes with that? And what are our respective roles in doing that?
Rapport, humility, and a strategic focus.
Right on.
So the CHRO CIO alliance has taken on new importance in the age of AI. What additional responsibilities are you seeing CHROs and CIOs be asked to take on?
Well, I think the responsibilities are figure out AI. There's a lot of boards, over the last couple of years, a lot of boards of directors that have said, "What's our HI? What's our AI strategy? What is it?" And so I think that there's no CIO on earth that could come up with an AI strategy in a vacuum, right? I mean, the CHRO has a seat at that table necessarily and fundamentally. And there's no CHRO that could build that strategy without, of course, the CIO being involved in that, because we can't make promises to the organization that we can't deliver on. um, as important as innovation is to an organization, what most larger organizations thrive on is reliability and predictability. And so that's, do the systems run, and do they run reliably, and can I get my work done today? Versus the other side of that coin is, how much can we innovate and how fast can we innovate? And the CIOs are going, whoa, that creates disruption, and disruption creates variability, and variability affects my uptime and my service levels and all these other things. So there's nervous tension already. Now in the HR, that's the nervous tension on the CIO side. That on the HR side, the nervous tension is this going to displace my workforce? I'm supposed to be championing people, right? How is this going to affect my workforce? So the responsibilities are, identify those things, understand that those fears are real, and then work together to identify those and address them together. I think that while there's fear of running our current organizations, there's also, on both sides of the table, CIO and CHRO, there's a fear of missing out. We don't want the AI bandwagon, to pass us by before we jump on. I would say that the responsibilities are this: level set what your concerns are, level set that there is a fear of missing out, level set that the AI relative to all, technology tools is relatively new, right? And we're moving through. I think we're coming out of what people are referring to as the trough of despair. The trough of despair comes after the hype cycle. so, so it's good to be coming out of the trough of despair together, because the products and the tools that are available are more real and more vetted now. And the players are starting to sort themselves out in terms of who's going to be long-term and actually add value, long-term and add value. So the job is for them just to sort that out, deal with the fears and concerns, deal with the fear of missing out, enable the innovation engine at the company. In other words, if it is a sleepy organization, we must come together and embrace innovation and make it practical and a real part of our culture, and lead our employees to embrace innovation and to manage the rest of our C-suite peers and our board of directors to accept some measure of innovation that creates uncertainty. We're going to live with uncertainty. Let's do it on purpose. So there's that. I think that embracing change is probably more of something that we have to manage up than we have to manage down in terms of seniority in an organization, and maybe something that we need to manage for the workers that have been there longer versus the workers that have been in the workforce, not as long.
Can you explain why we have to manage it up and not down?
I'm saying we have to manage up, and we have to manage, because those are leaders that don't want disruption, right? And then we also
Got
have to manage, I think, workers that have been in the workforce a lot longer, because change becomes less comfortable then as well. So
Yes.
not everybody embraces change the same way. The younger workforce is going to embrace it more. They're a great source of ideas, but we have to mentor them and let them know that we're running an operation here. We can't just chase a shiny object, right? And we have to tell the other people we're running an operation here, but we still have to innovate, right? So we have to have a controlled innovation environment. We need to embrace change. And here's what I really think: we need to harmonize the speed of innovation with the governance of innovation. We cannot just willy-nilly introduce things into the organization, because that creates variation and instability. Um, but if we focus on speed, and we focus on governance, and we focus on innovation, and we say it's not one or the other, it's all of this together. That's what now that's very strategic and sort of principled based. Like, those are the foundation stones. The responsibilities are, what use cases are going to be the most beneficial for our type of business and our workforce. Let's identify those, let's prioritize those, and let's start bench testing those. Let's do proof of concepts, and let's and let's put pressure and resources on this, but let's surround that program, the AI program, right? The corporate program to go do this. Let's surround that with good speed, good governance, good change management, and a dedication to excellence. So I think there needs to be, in my opinion, a balanced approach and a collaborative. This is if there's any reason for the CHRO and the CIO to be firmly planted in strategy, this would be it, right? Technology is an amplifier. You're going to amplify good or you're going to amplify bad. Let's make sure we're amplifying good.
All right. Well, speaking of AI and speaking of technology being an amplifier, how is agentic AI shaping the CIO CHRO relationship?
We're not just querying them for answers, right? They're not just giving us encyclopedic answers by doing research on the internet. They're performing tasks and producing algorithms that reason through multiple data points and through a basic course of it can pick a course of action and go execute on that course of action. I think it's so fascinating that the HR department now is going to the IT department to find new workers. Do you have some digital workers that we can bring into the organization?
Right, right.
So AI is not going to outright replace people. AI is going to replace people who don't adopt and embrace AI. And so I think that, boy, how does it shape the relationship? Never in maybe the history of HR learning and development programs did we have to amplify our learning and development programs, right? To embrace where AI is taking us and to culturate the community of employees around that, to embrace it effectively. And technology is providers, the CIOs, are at the heart of that because they're provisioning the technology and assume accountabilities for it.
So, Paul, when it comes to investing in new digital tools or systems, how can HR and IT jointly ensure those investments actually drive adoption and behavior change and not just implementation?
So many organizations stop at the finances of a project and they measure two things. Is the project, I want to, and they say, these are my two requirements. I want this project to be on time and I want this project to be on budget. Well, those are important, but they're missing a key ingredient, which you spoke about, and that's is I want this project to be on value. How do I get beyond? See, on time and on budget are KPIs that measure the success or failure of an implementation. Okay, on value then goes way beyond implementation, and it measures, did we get value? Did we get a return on this investment? Did we create value in the organization? So we need to train and reorient organizations. And HR, the CHRO, can focus on this when they're in planning meetings for software and rollouts. Is do we have a timeline? Do we have a budget? Are we focused on how we're going to measure value? Right. So how do you get between we've implemented this and we've fully adopted it? And how do we come together to achieve that? In the old days, we called that organizational change management. You must necessarily, and with every imperative, bring people along in the process. Give people a feedback loop, but then design in a process to respond to that feedback positively and do it quickly. The shorter the feedback loop and the more reactive that it is to the need, the better off it's going to be. And that's HR is uniquely positioned to send the human message of engagement and to be the advocate for the human in the loop here, to challenge the IT provisioners of new systems and ask these four questions. Is it useful to the end user? Is it simple? Just stop right there. Is it useful? If you can't get past useful, you're automating unnecessarily, right? Is it simple? Is it dependable? Is it accessible? And if you meet those criteria, you will have happy, engaged users. But do you know who champions the HR function?
Speaking of the people, many HR leaders are being asked to have some AI or technical knowledge themselves. What level of tech fluency do you think CHROs need to have in this day and age?
I love it. I would not hesitate to go to some of the the MBA program, the executive MBA programs that are out there, that are online, and take some AI training at an executive level. You need executive level training because you're running you're running an organization as an accountable executive. You need to learn and be exposed to not just the tools that are out there, but the application of those tools in the marketplace in real businesses and with an executive posture. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is um, take some of your own training. There's tons of stuff online.
So, Paul, as we wrap up our conversation, let's end with some final words. If you could give one piece of advice to CHROs about building high trust partnership with the CIO, what would it be?
I would tell CHROs, look, just go to the CIO and tell them you want to have a high trust, productive relationship. And that's your intent, right? So there's a degree of humility, I think, that goes with that. I think that most CIOs out there, the preponderance of them, would love to hear that from the other executives. We have a unique opportunity to collaborate to effect positive change and progress at the whole company together. You're running automation, I'm running people. Let's put them together, and they're both critically important. And let's go signal that to the business in a unified front. And so let's work together to establish that relationship. What will you need from me to help make that happen for you? And let's have a dialogue about that. This is probably a lunch conversation. Go and break bread and get to know each other and talk about family and talk about hopes and dreams and talk about your departments. Lean into what this person is passionate about. Ask your CIO, what are you passionate about? I mean, you do a lot of technology, you lead people, talk to me about what you're passionate about. Let me help you with that. And the CIO should do that as well. I mean, people are not just position holders. They're so multifaceted. Get to know the person, build a rapport, and because that's the stuff of trust. Trust is comes when you know a person and you get beyond knowing a person and you like that person. And you get beyond liking that person. Now you have experience working with that person and you see how they are and what their character makeup is like and how they are in good times and tough times. And now you trust a person, right? And so I think transparency is important, but you've got to back up that vulnerability by testing it, right? Are they going to honor that vulnerability, right? And if you ever feel like they're not, go to them. Go to them and call them out on that behavior and say, here's where my concerns are. I think that avoidance never works. We have to be humble, but take our grievances to people and have an honest conversation with them about how this affects me, right? Or what concerns I have. And so an honest relationship about telling them what you want, managing to those expectations, being brave enough to go have a conversation that's uncomfortable once in a while.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
Of course.
And that's where we'll end it for this episode of People and Strategy. A huge thanks to Paul for your valuable insights. Thanks for tuning in. You could follow the People and Strategy podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Also, podcast reviews have a real impact on podcast visibility. So if you enjoyed today's episode, leave a review to help others find the show. Finally, you could find all our episodes on our website at shrm.org/podcasts. And while you're there, sign up for our weekly newsletter. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.
SHRM.